All right, everyone, welcome back to the Help Me Rhonda Show. We are here hanging out in my studio, and today I've got a very special guest that all of you are going to absolutely love, especially if you like breaking the rules. You know, on my show, we talk about sexy brands. I interview sexy brands, those that know who they are, know what they do, and they want to leave an impact on the world with their life's work. So today, my guest is Helene Clabecq, who is the founder of Lives Disrupted. And I am really excited to have you on my show. How are you, my dear?
Me as well. How are you, Rhonda?
Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Bonjour.
Or bonjour, should I have said? Obviously, you're French. Okay, let's talk about Lives Disrupted and where this came about. And what does it really mean? Like, it sounds really cool, but what is it? Where did it come from?
Thank you. Okay, so Lives Disruptive is my brand, but it's also a concept. It really represents this fuck it moment where you decide to drop everything and just like change something in your life. And that's what I'm obsessed with. So the way it started is when I personally felt like I had everything perfect on paper. You know, the classic story, and I felt like something was dead inside of me. And so I was in Sweden at the time. I had followed my ex, and I was dreaming of traveling. I wanted to connect with people. I wanted to live fully, and I decided to do that. And slowly, that's how the brand came together.
Wow. All right. So you had this fuck it moment, right? Or an aha moment, if you will, if we want to be PC, but I'm not ever very PC. So you had this moment, right? And I think this happens to a lot of people, is that there's one moment in their life that they go, that was it. Take us back to that moment. What happened for you? And then how did all of a sudden you get inspired to start interviewing people all over the world? You're telling their brand story as a journalist. You're also helping them create their brand. And you've been traveling the world. We're sitting here in Bali in my studio, right? So tell me about that fucking moment. What happened for you? And then where was that transition point?
Right. So basically, like I said, I had this perfect job, great boyfriend, secure life back in Sweden. And I felt like something was wrong with me because I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel excited to wake up. So what I did is that one day I decided to buy a notebook, and I called it super, cheesy, but it was making dreams come true or something.
Yeah.
And I started to take notes of everything that I wanted to manifest in my life. And the two words that kept coming up were people and places. And so one day I got an email, from the French embassy saying that I had only 2 months left if I wanted to travel abroad and work to another country.
So why? Because in France, you only have a certain time frame to do that? Like, how did that come about?
It was a special visa formula that made the whole administrative process simple. And I was like, I'm going to take that chance. And I started to, apply to hundreds of jobs. And I finally got one job from like 400 applicants.
Oh my goodness.
To go to the USA, which was my dream. My dream at the time, my password at the time was Dream of LA. Every time I was going to work, I was typing that in. So I was like, just let's do it. I saw the opportunity and I had enough at that point. I was like,
wow. So you got a job in LA. You flew directly to LA. What did you do there in LA?
Right. So the first step was California. So first I went to San Francisco, then LA. And I worked for this AI company, a French company that was expanding to the US. And what happened was that after a few months, they decided to, stop and go back to France and focus on, European market. And that was the second domino, like the second fuck it moment. I was like, I haven't dropped everything to just like end there.
Yeah, right.
So I took a flight ticket to Mexico the same day when I knew I had 30 days to pack my bags and leave, to just figure out everything. And then I did a sound healing that basically made me realize that, I was going on the path in the sense that I started traveling again, but I wasn't happy in my relationship. I wasn't happy in my job. I didn't feel completely fulfilled. I didn't feel completely alive. And so when I went back to California, that's when I took a bus to LA. I knocked at doors. I just like went to specific companies to like say, I want to work with you. And 2 days before my visa expired, I got 2 job offers.
Wow.
And I could stay and just like do.
Now some could go, oh, that's a little, well, how convenient, or that's so synchronistic. However, I don't believe in synchronicities, right? Like we know that when you put something out there that you want, you take deliberate action, right? The universe can conspire in our favor. Do you feel that that's what really happened for you? Because you said you did this, you had the spiritual awakening, the sound healing. Like open that up, because it's interesting, a lot of times people have a hard time with combining spirituality and business and really saying we are spiritual beings sitting here in this physical world. Like you're a true statement for this, right?
Thank you. Yeah, that's how I see it too. I wasn't into spirituality at all back then, but when this happened to me, I was like, there's something else. I feel like I'm receiving messages from outside, which could be also my intuition. It could be from inside, but this moment, the sound healing triggered it through the vibration. So yeah, I think that I just set my mind and I was determined and I was clear. And that's when all the signs appeared and all, the opportunities came to me.
Right. So is that how Lives Disrupted started, or did it happen after that? Because then now you're in LA, you've already taken some journeys, but you still are going from job to job opportunity, which is great. But how did you get to Bali then from something like that? Like there had to have been another fucking moment for you.
Well, so there's been a lot.
It's our theme,
the last 2 years have been heavy in, adventures. So when I was in California, so moving from Sweden to California was a big shift, because people were approaching me and talking to me in Sweden. When I was talking to people to maybe like even make a compliment, they would sometimes run away or look at me like I'm weird, because they like to stay in their bubble in Stockholm, and they don't want to like be disturbed by strangers. It feels scary for them. In California, I was the opposite, where, at the bakery, at the bus station, at parties everywhere, people would come to me and not only just like chit chat, but actually have really deep conversations and tell me about, the breakup that changed their lives, the fact that they were, slaves as children, or the fact that, they wanted to commit suicide, or like all those things that they hadn't told anyone. And that's when I decided to combine, storytelling with branding and actually include human stories that anyone can relate to or like feel emotions for into a brand. And the reason why I got to Bali is because after the USA and after my breakup, I moved back to my parents for a while. And I didn't want to go back into corporate. I wanted to become an entrepreneur. So I had those few months where I had to, put my ego aside and, stay with my parents and figure out, how to build my own brand. Because it's great to help people with their brands, but I also wanted to build my own. So that's what happened. And then Bali, I felt called to it in a way. I guess that's how it works. But I was in Paris and I was like, why would I stay in Paris? It's, winter is coming. It's a little bit stressful here. I have a lot of friends in Bali. It looks like paradise on Instagram. Life is cheaper too. And there's a lot of digital nomads and entrepreneurs. So it feels like the best place to be at.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so you've had all these moments, and the theme here is that you kept listening to yourself. Like you were listening to your intuition, you were allowing spirit or the universe, if you will, to sort of guide you. And I think that's, it's really powerful, especially being when you think about so many people right now, right? They're really stuck in their life almost, and they're going, I want more, but they're not really listening because, especially now, not a lot of people have an opportunity to get out. So you've interviewed, now you're a journalist, you've interviewed hundreds of people and you wanted to start listening and telling their stories. So what were some of the commonalities that have happened or that you've seen at those that start telling you their story? Because I know with Lives Disrupted, with what you're doing is you're bringing people in and getting them to share that story. But what are some things that have come from that are commonalities in those kind of people?
It's a really good question. And so the concept of disruption is something that I heard of a lot when I was in San Francisco, because you have all the startups that want to disrupt the world. And what I've noticed in those stories that were told to me, basically, was that people were going through a disruption in their own lives before actually going ahead and making a change and an impact in the world. So that's like the starting point. And usually it's a breaking point, which means that, you know, life sends you signs, okay, like maybe you should change something, maybe you're not in alignment. But if you're not listening, if you're not seeing that, it's gonna shake you harder until you reach a moment where whatever was comfortable before is not comfortable anymore, and then you have to change. So it's definitely something that I've noticed, that life is gonna shake you. And that's gonna be the starting point for you to actually transform.
Yeah, so now you've told stories, and like I know that you're publishing an article in
the World Economic Forum.
Yeah, the World Economic Forum. So share that about what that topic is, because you've got some deep values that you have. And how do you consider when you're looking at someone with a brand that is truly authentic, like what does that really mean to you, and how is that now relating into some of these amazing articles and publications, and you're supporting such really grand communities?
So I'm writing an article about the new wave of conscious entrepreneurs. And conscious entrepreneurs are people who have understood that, you know, in the world right now, it's not enough to build a business and make money. And, you know, we also have to take into account values and ethics and place that actually first, because, you know, the bigger your company, the bigger you're gonna impact the world positively or negatively. So it's something to start taking into account, and we need to talk about this, and we need to talk about the best practices that some entrepreneurs have that can inspire others, you know, to also see like, oh, this is possible, you know. For example, the clothes that we are wearing from Anale, it's recyclable, and that should be the norm, you know. So that's just like one of many examples of people that I'm inspired by. And what I do is that I dig into their why, you know, like, why do you care, you know? Because that, you know, sorry, I'll start again. Because that's what gives us emotions, and that's how we can relate with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, obviously you and I share a very kindred love for brand development and what that really means. And I agree. You know, it's funny, I have a master's in business, and I've got a degree in marketing and advertising. And there's one thing that I knew that was very different that you cannot learn in a textbook. It's actually how to bring the why out of a brand, and how to actually have what I like to call is that heartbeat, right, from a brand. And that's, you know, many miss that, right? They forget that their stories is what really sells. You know, there's a reason why as kids, we love stories, right? We retain and we learn from stories. And I think more than ever, the way that the world has gone, people need to hear stories from others that were disrupted, or that said, I'm having my own aha or fuck it moment, and it's time to make a shift. Because you're right, more and more people now need to stand up for what they want, right? And you know, when we're sitting here by ourselves, you did this and you said, what do I really want? What keeps coming up? You know, and I think people, they get so tied up in what they're supposed to do every day that they forget to actually say, what do I want? And when you know what you want, you can start really sharing with others. Right?
Because like, if you walk around and all your friends are complaining about their partnership and their job, and oh my God, thank you, it's finally Friday, you think it's normal, it's the norm, you know? But that's a matrix that we live in. There is a conditioning there that makes us think that this is okay, but no, it's not. And you can break free from this if you listen to what your body is telling you and what your intuition is telling you, you know? And sometimes it's very useful to get someone external to help you pinpoint your story and why you're doing things. And sometimes you realize, okay, well, I'm doing this because my parents wanted me to. Well, maybe it's time to change, you know? Or I'm doing this because since I was small, I always loved that. And then this specific, you know, thing happened to me. And then I blossomed and I love it. Okay, well then, keep going, you know?
Yeah, no, you brought up a good point, because I think that's, someone might be listening going, oh yeah, sure, I should just tell my story, right? However, it's not just about telling your story, it's having someone really help you pull that out. I just recently interviewed Helene Clabecq as well, which she's also a Forbes columnist, right? And she helps people tell their brand story as well. And it's I keep hearing common things, right? True, we're very aligned. It's how does your story, what is about your story and the things that you've done in your story that can help impact someone else's life, right? And that's really the essence. I think you're right, especially being a journalist, you know, you know the right questions to ask people to get them to share that. What do you think is going to be the effect on the world if people begin to truly start telling their true authentic story, or they start showing up authentically?
Right. I think that's where the world is headed, because we have so much access to platforms that let us speak, social media included. And I feel like with what happened the last few months as well, from the conversations that I've had, including with, you know, influencers, they realize that, you know, they are talking about what they do or products they want to sell, but you know, they want to stand for something.
Yeah,
you know, they want to stand for something that matters to them, that, you know, hits them home. And I think what changes when you start speaking up on what you care about. You know, for example, me, it's with feminism, for instance. You become a thought leader, actually, because you talk about things that you have experience with, that you care about, that you have knowledge of, and people start seeing you for actually who you are, you know? So once you start to dare speaking up on topics that matter to you, you are seen for, you know, your core values. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I absolutely love this conversation. I think that you know, it's really about helping others see inside of themselves what they may not see, and then encouraging them to really stand up. So what are some other projects that you're working on right now? I know Lives Disrupted, we're doing a lot of work together with our PR agency and really starting to tell more stories and getting them into bigger publications. Like there's an article you're writing right now in Founder. Like, tell us about that, and what are some of the other things that you're doing and projects that you're working on?
So for this article, I'm talking about what I've learned from hundreds of interviews of disruptors and what are the similarities between them. So it's really fun because I've gathered so much data now that I can actually guide people to disrupt as well and make a change, whether that's in their lives or, you know, in their business. And another project that I'm working on here in Bali is a show. And that's gonna be about game changers, people who have like an out of the ordinary lifestyle. And actually the pilot episode is gonna be about infiltrating the mafia and actually show another angle of what they're doing in society and show the light in the darkness in a way.
Wow, that's really exciting, because I think there's a lot more to that and that people don't really realize. One of my favorite books is The Art of War, and by Lao Tzu. It's actually quite detailed, right? But there's some really big lessons in this book, which is the art of war is really about keeping your enemies the closest, right? And so that you can strategically move. And certainly there's a lot of people that have leveraged that in a bad way, but there's really amazing ways to leverage it in a really great way, so that you can understand and learn how to really navigate, you know, the outcome that, you know, you're looking to have but just by really seeing through people. So this is really exciting. I really appreciate you coming and joining us and sharing. Where can we find more about Lives Disrupted? How do they find more of you? And where can they look next for seeing some of the things that you're going to be working on?
Right. So you can find me on livesdisrupted.com. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, Helene Clabecq. And you can find what's going to happen on all those, social media platforms. I'll keep you posted there, and a lot more to come.
Awesome. All right. Wow. Can you imagine being someone that has a completely fuck it moment and decides to shift their life? But more importantly, someone that decides to shift their life and then they realize the more lives that they can help disrupt is going to help change and shift the platform of the world. We have that kind of power inside of us by looking at ourselves and saying, what is it about what I want out of my life that I'm not living? And how can I help inspire more people to go after their life and disrupt their own life so that the world completely crack on its back? So once again, everyone, thank you for being here on the Help Me Rhonda Show. Super excited to share more with you guys about so many more things that are happening. And don't forget, if you are someone that's thinking, am I PR worthy? Is my brand ready to tell my brand story? Do I need a brand makeover, or should my story be told in top tier magazines like Forbes, Entrepreneur and Inc. magazine, or even Lives Disrupted, Disrupt magazine, Founder, all of these incredible publications that we're now starting to tell your stories. We're telling the brand's true, authentic story, and the world wants yours. So make sure you come and find us and see how we can actually help you guys. But I'm always going to leave you this. If you're going to create a brand, create a sexy brand. And if you're going to be anything, be unstoppable. We'll see you next week. Cheers, everyone.